All right, sweetheart. So this video is just a recap or review of things that we've already talked about. I'm trying to prepare you for your winter assessment that I will be giving you on the 18th. All right, so here are a few things to remember. We want to add all things to the cart of our minds. So let's review the 5 elements of fiction. Because we're reading fiction today, you need to be able to analyze these components so that you all can have understanding of the story. So the 5 elements of fiction, we're talking about plot. And when we're talking about plot, we're really talking about how the author arranges events to develop the basic idea of the text. Okay? Plot is planned, is logical, sequential, chronological. It has a structure to it, okay? From beginning, middle, and end. So this is why your notes on the order of events was important. Next, we have setting. We know setting is the time, location of when the event took place or when the story takes place. When we're talking about time, I don't want us to get focused on, years. Time can be shown through seasons. Time can be shown in various places, social conditions, the atmosphere of the country or the mood of the country or the world. So those are the things that help us to understand when we're talking about setting, okay? So I just don't want you to limit it to a specific time, a specific location. There are other things that we can look at, such as weather conditions, social conditions, like the feelings. And I'm not talking about mood per se. I'm talking about the atmosphere of the text. If you ever read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, what was the atmosphere of that text? That will help you to determine the setting. Then we have characters, and we know that characters have 2 meanings. One of the meaning is the fictional person within the story, and then the next one is the quality of the person, and we're going to talk a little bit more about qualities or characteristics later. When we're talking about characters, we have a plethora or a few characters that we really need to focus on. Every story needs a protagonist. What do I mean when I say protagonist? Protagonist is the main character of the story, as well as an antagonist. The antagonist is a character that is opposing the main character. Not necessarily a bad guy, but providing opposition to our protagonist. Okay? And then we're talking about point of view. Remember, point of view has several meanings. Point of view could mean the angle of which the story is being told. We know that is narration. And those angles or views could be first person, second person, third person limited, omniscient, objective. So these are things that we can look at. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. And then also point of view can also mean perspective. But when we're talking about fiction, we're talking about point of view, point of view in the I'm getting so tongue-tied. We're talking about point of view as far as narration, okay? And then we have theme. We know theme is the central message, the moral message of the text, okay? It's the moral message of the text. In our previous video, we said the unifying idea, and those are the same things, okay? Alrighty, so then Okay, come on, sweetie. There we go. So let's talk a little bit about plot. So there are 5 pieces of plot or 5 components of plot. We have exposition. Exposition is the introduction, and we meet our characters. We find a little bit of background information is revealed, the setting is revealed, or clues to the setting is revealed. All of that happens in the beginning of the story. Then we have rise in action. Here's something that I want you all to remember. Rise in action is a series of events. It's not just one event. It's multiple events that causes the story to become more complicated. This is where we see the conflict. The conflict is revealed, and then we're learning more about the challenges or the struggles that the character faces. Okay, so we're looking at that. We see these within our rise in action. Then we have the climax. Again, the climax is the turning point of the story. This is where we, as readers, we wonder, okay, what will happen next? Will the conflict be resolved or not? What will they do? This is where we find tension. Now, when we want to determine the climax, there is a threefold phenomena, and I want you all to make sure that you've reviewed this. And these 3 points are simply: the character is going to receive some information, some new information. The character is basically going to be enlightened. Then the character has to accept this information. They got to realize this information. They don't have to agree with it, but they realize, okay, I need this information. This information is going to help propel me into the next stage. Then the character has to act. The main character, the protagonist, has to act on this information. They got to make a choice which will determine whether or not the conflict is resolved or that character's objective is met. Then we have the following action, and the following action is where the resolution begins. This is where the events begin, the events become less complicated, and they all start to fall in place. Okay, and then they're going to lead us to the resolution or the conclusion of the text, the end of the text. Remember, not every story will have a conclusion. Some stories end at the climax, and that's okay. So let's talk about conflicts very quickly. So when we're talking about conflicts, we're talking about what helps to move the story forward. Conflicts are essential to the text. Without a conflict, you really don't have a story. Without a conflict, we really don't have a theme. So when we're looking at conflicts, we need to look at any form of struggle that our character is facing, whether it's internal or external. When we're talking about internal, we're talking about when a character struggles with himself, herself, okay? It's something that's happening within its soul or its emotions or its physical limitations or its choices. This is happening from within the character. External is when the character is struggling with an outside force, outside of the body. It could be character versus supernatural, character versus nature, character versus another character versus society. So we're looking at the struggle that the character has outside of itself, okay? Let's talk about our literary focus. Remember, I told you that character can refer to the people in the text, or character has to deal with the characteristics of a character. And the way that we determine that is it's either directly stated by the author, which is called direct characterization. The author comes directly out and tells us that Sally was a loyal, lovable person. Or indirect characterization is when the author gives clues about the character's quality, traits, and personality. Well, we use the still method to determine or to analyze a character indirectly, okay? So we look at what the character says, we look at the character's thoughts, we look at the character's emotions, we look at how the character affects other characters' emotions, we look at the actions of the characters, and of course, we look at how the character dresses. You know, we want to know things like, what do the other characters say about this particular character? What do the character that we're analyzing, what are their dreams and aspirations? So we're looking at those things to determine the personality of this character indirectly. All right, and so then our second literary focus has to do with language and diction. So we know that we look at DIDL. We use DIDLS to help us to analyze the text on a more deeper level. And we know that the D in DIDL stands for diction. The I is for image. The other D is for details. L is for language. And S is for syntax, the structure of the sentence. So your focus, the D and the L in DIDLS, I'm giving you just a few things to think about, is language. So we're going to focus on idioms and personification. What are idioms? Idioms are words or a group of words that have that do not mean what they say literally. So we can't take those words literal. For example, when I got married, my auntie was like, "Oh, you're getting cold feet." Well, was she asking me was my feet cold literally, or does cold feet mean something else? And that's what we mean. We use idioms all the time. Personification, we know that personification is when an inanimate object or a non-human object has human-like characteristics. If you think about Beauty and the Beast, who is not a human, when he was in beast mode, he was not a human, but he had human qualities, or the teacup, or the dresser. They had human-like qualities. They could sing, they can dance. And the reason for that is because it helps to paint a mental picture for the reader. And if you get that mental picture, you're able to connect on a deeper level to what the author is saying and what the text is saying. Diction, we're always talking about word choice. Words are any author's superpower. Words are the world's superpower because we speak words. And so words give life, words create death, words create feelings, words can heal, words can break. So we look at diction, word choice, why the author selected that word that he or she selected. What is the connotation? And we know connotations are the feelings and the emotions attached to that word versus the denotation of the word. So here's something you all should know. All words have a meaning. And some of the words are polysemous. Polysemous means multiple meanings. So we have to know what these words mean in context of the text or the story that we're reading. And then we have to determine the connotations, the feelings associated with those words, or the emotions associated with those words. Because if we do that correctly, we're able to understand the tone that was created and the mood that we have as the reader. All right, guys, this is your last video. Take notes. Have a good day. See you later.